Hi, and welcome to another season and another story. Season 3 of Money Talk is a little different than our first two seasons because we're uncovering the truth. We're uncovering the truth about us, about who we are in our weakest moments, who we are when we have to draw from something that we don't even think that we have because we think we're at the bottom of our well. It's a story of survival, surrender, and the strength that it takes to start over. You know, I wouldn't have ever believed this a year ago that I would be in my beautiful home that I'd been in for 30 years. And yet, just less than 90 days later, it would turn into something like this. It is hard to imagine that when something like this happens, so complete, so devastating, you think, I can't go on. But look at this. Look how you find something within you that says, I got to have a place to live. I got to have a place to stay. And despite the fact that there still is no electricity, I got a bed to sleep in. And I can tell you that it isn't exactly home, but I can tell you that it's a heck of a lot better when I'm looking at things that remind me of what I had and what I can do with it, or even without it. You know, when life falls apart, it rarely asks you for permission. I didn't, I don't recall hearing somebody say, hey, do we have permission to burn your home down or destroy your life or destroy your equity that you built over 30 years? One day you think you got everything under control and damn it, the next day it's out. It's gone. You're standing on the ashes of what used to be home or hope or loved ones or even a business that you've built. Now, I'd like to remind us that we can't always control the pain that hits us, the pain that we can't control, even about what comes next. We think we can. We think we've got this all under control. And let me just tell you, no, we don't. I hear this all the time. We make plans and God laughs. It makes you wonder where your strength is going to come from. What do you believe in? And the other things that really challenge you. Well, today's not going to be any different. This season is all about the story of moving on, getting up, keeping going, get going and start again. So I'm going to ask you to do two things. If this message resonates with you at all, I want you to share it. I want you to give it to people, send it to people, send them the link, or even, gosh, go stream it yourself and say, this is a message of hope and strength, because it is. The second thing is stay tuned because we'll be right back.
I can show you how to be strong. Come on, follow me. Heard you looking for a hero. Well, look up, look up, look up, look up.
I got something to give. I have something to say. You know you got something to do.
Welcome to the stage, Linda Kaye.
And we are back. Our guest today knows that kind of strength. I'm going to share just something really personal and a little vulnerable with you. The past 2 weeks have given me a reason to pause. And in fact, I didn't even want to get out of bed. That's how bad this was. I have never understood that PTSD is something that is real. You hear about it, you hear about soldiers going to war. Well, when something traumatic happens to you, yes, it can. And I had that kind of period of time for about 2 weeks where I just couldn't shake it off. I couldn't resist. I couldn't find the happiness or the joy in what I was experiencing. And nobody's going to find happiness and joy in experiencing misery. Let me just tell you, but I did not expect to experience the misery in the way that I did before. And for all of you that have ever had to deal with something over and over again, the persistence of that problem, you take one step forward, 2 steps back, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. It's never an easy path at all. But today, we're going to talk to somebody that has that kind of strength. At just 13 years old, she lost her mom. Not to an unfortunate circumstance like an illness, but something that we can barely comprehend, suicide. And even after, I'm going to say 22 years of a family member taking his life, today I still struggle to find an answer as to why and what could I have done. And I don't think that survivor's guilt is something that to be ignored either. But at 20, she faced another a life-altering choice. placing her newborn daughter up for adoption. Can you imagine? I just had two identical twin baby girls born to my daughter. And I cannot imagine the pain that it was 30 years ago that I had my child. I can't imagine, even at 20 or 30 or 40, having to make such a tough choice. God, that just makes my heart ache. She's lived through darkness, doubt, and even the edge of despair. And let me just tell you, when you go into that dark place, I want to think of it as like a spiral. You think, okay, I can handle it because we've left little breadcrumbs to get us back up. But once you know how to get down into that deep, dark crevice called the back of our minds or the depth of our depression, it becomes easier and easier and easier to spiral down. How do you get back up? Well, let me just tell you, because this is an inspiration for everybody. Today, she's a powerhouse entrepreneur. She's running multiple seven-figure businesses, not one, ladies and gentlemen, multiple, mentoring others and redefining what it means to thrive after you've had trauma. Her story isn't just about building wealth. It's about building worth. Because you can build all the wealth you want, and if you don't have a sense of self-worth, what does it mean? So please join me in welcoming to the stage, Sydney Curtin.
Hi,
Sydney.
So good to see you.
So good to see you. What an amazing story.
Thank you
Oh
so
my
much.
gosh. I'm mentioning a few things that just bring a sense of depth of clarity for me, that you've been through so many of these struggles and things that most adults don't even experience. And, you started getting this at 13 years old. But like success, the disaster leaves clues too. What kind of things that do you recall in your own childhood that you could share with us, that you saw things that just didn't look quite normal? It didn't feel normal. It was like, okay, what is this? Can you talk about that?
Yeah, when you grow up in this level of complex trauma, it is called enmeshment trauma from a psychological perspective. And we as individuals, we're not born resilient. We become resilient with the moments that build that character trait in us. So it wasn't that, I remember my dad owning a very successful business. So what it really boiled down to was all of the commentary that I got on my life growing up was, you're so lucky, your dad owns this store. I was in the history book for the city that I grew up in, a picture of our family. My name is mentioned in it. And it was a very confusing, almost imposter syndrome like experience that I had, because I knew the dysfunctionality that was happening behind the scenes and behind the closed doors. But on paper, our family was the image of Northern Colorado.
Sorry, just a small glitch. A dog whining at the door.
No, that's okay.
Sorry about that. But when you say that you have this sense of imposter syndrome, is the imposter syndrome from a sense of, they say we look like this, but I'm on the inside, the reality is it's really this mess over here?
Exactly. It was that I felt that I should be grateful and that I was blessed, seemingly on the outside, but behind
This
closed doors,
is so good. Oh
my
my
mom.
gosh, Sydney, hold that thought for just a second. That is such a beautiful statement, because you say, I should feel like this. I should, right? And our should is shouldness, right?
Right.
Because it's not, we feel the sense of lie within us. We feel
Absolutely.
that sense of shame, in fact. And for me, I will tell you, Sydney, I know that when my brother took his life, I had a sense of shame. I had a sense of guilt. I had a sense of, why couldn't I be there? Why couldn't I see this? Why couldn't I figure this out? Now, I was a whole lot older. But, as a teenager, and a young teenager, you just entered your teens, for this to occur. And I think that for every young woman, certainly the first relationship that she has is with a man is with her dad, right? Because he teaches you so many things about what men should do for women. But we as women depend on our moms to tell us who we are or to show us what we can be and to encourage us. Tell me what that sense of loss meant for you.
That's such a good question. I think that it really shaped who I am in a business world today, because my dad did go on to remarry relatively quickly, and he's still with her today, and she's great. But I was not in a position as the oldest and the only girl remaining in my family to accept another woman to come in and act as though she was my mom. Those shoes had been filled for me, and I fought to defend my mom's character with everything that I had, to my detriment, because of the unhealed components of that trauma and that loss. However, as an adult now, I can see that not really having a mother figure in those crucial adolescent stages, it didn't impact me in a negative way. It just impacted me in a different way than young women who grow up with that maternal figure in their life. So not to take away from it, it's just that my dad became my rock for who I looked up to. I think a lot like a man in a lot of ways. I operate a lot like a man, and it's what makes me so successful in my business endeavors in a lot of capacities. So I'm really grateful for him and everything that he did for my brothers and I. And yeah, he's got his stuff just like we all do, but I wouldn't change that I didn't have another woman to cling to in my adolescence. I had mentors and role models, and my mom remained my mom. She's still my mom, and nothing will ever change or take away from that. And also not to diminish the credibility of my stepmom, who's also wonderful.
And thank you for saying that. I think that's an important statement that you just made. The clarity that I feel for me, certainly as a young teen, and observing so many other young women as they're growing up, when they have that capacity to, excuse me, to have a mom there, we also learn that there is only one queen bee in the nest. And that queen bee, it's because they have the relationship with dad. And I think that as a teenager, that's when mom becomes aware that the daughter and dad are having, this awareness of a relationship, not that suggests that there's something wonky and weird, but that is a natural progression of the relationship. And the healthiness of this is that, you all have a strong unit. When one unit is not as strong, there can be jealousy, there can be all kinds of things. So you were spared that in a certain way, but you were also spared this interesting thing that happens, which is that growth for the female as a young woman. It's certainly from my experience, understands that she needs to carve and craft her own way. You had a different issue dealing with, keeping your mom's memory alive and keeping, those different things. But I love what you said. Being a female trapped, or being a male trapped in a female body. I relate to that because I feel that all of my life. I have felt that. Being a strong woman, you get you get doors opened only for a while, and then they assume that you can open your own door.
Right.
Our strength appears to others that we don't need help. And yes, we do. We just forget that we can ask for it. And I think that's a really hard thing to do. Do you have difficulty asking for help?
Very much so. I would say that I have matured in that a lot, because I have learned that, for example, in my coaching business, I want people to come to me and ask for help. And if I cannot reciprocate that behavior in my own life, then I'm not living out the things that I teach my clients. So that was a learning curve that I had to grow through. And I've matured a lot in that, but it has not been easy my whole life. And I still struggle with it sometimes, depending on the topic. Absolutely.
I love the fact that you're living in a time and in the generation that women in business and resilience leadership go hand in hand. Because the challenges of being a woman in a male-dominated industry, construction and tech, right? And we're going to talk about that in a second, because that is a very, very male-dominated business. And I grew up in the tech business. That you lead with heart and with grit. Now, in a tough man's world, and of course you're a blonde with beautiful long blonde hair, and so you probably get teased a lot, and maybe in a weird way, how gruff guys, kind of tease and flirt a little bit, hoping that, for no other reason except to be expressive as a male to the opposite sex. How is that dealing in your business? And talk about that business. This is a male-dominated business, and I wish you were here in California because I need this right now. I've had 3 people cancel on me to have pour concrete. Talk about that business.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, I mean, my exterior home and auto restoration company, flat work is one of the things that we do in that as well. And it's true, that whole insurance claim or trade industry collectively is, so I don't have another woman in my company in that particular realm. I wish that I did because they do phenomenal in this area, but it's just that it's a lot of actual labor work. And unless they have the grit and tenacity that it takes to survive in that industry, you just have to have thicker skin than some of these other sales organizations or business models that exist that women can also excel and thrive in. So I think that it's just a more natural route to take. I do get underestimated very frequently with my subcontractors and my employees in that capacity, but every single one of them learns very quickly that I do not mess around, and all of them would tell you that.
That's a great statement. Being the only female in your industry or in your company comes with all kinds of challenges, and of course there's an assumption that, hey, you're the woman, or you're the boss, you should be doing it, right? But talk to me about the risks that you have to take. You're running a business and you're making decisions about who you're going to hire, who you're going to farm the jobs out to, and how you're going to do things. There's a lot of processing that goes on with this. Talk about the risks in your business.
I have done a really good job at creating a business model that almost entirely mitigates risk for that specific business only, almost. So my business is structured as a brokerage, which means that I carry business insurance for myself. However, I am basically the middleman, which is also why I own a consulting firm. But for businesses that don't have the money to hire my consulting services in order to establish a sales team, address KPIs, figure out where the bleeds are in the company, I have my own brokerage where really what I've done is create a list of preferred contractors that I use and function as the GC. And I hire my own sales team, 1099. They get paid a percentage of the commission based on the job total. And all of that is at the liability of my subcontractors. They are required to carry the same insurance that I do, but all of the warranties are through their company. So it's kind of like an alternative, if you will, to the companies that cannot invest in the cost of hiring a consultant. My prices aren't cheap because of the quality that we have to offer and bring to the table. So if you just want me to bring you sales, I can do that, but we're going to play by my rules.
Yeah, we are. Yes, we are. That's awesome. Talk to me a little bit about what it meant to make the unbelievably courageous decision to let go of your child and let her be, or he be adopted. How did you transform that pain into a purpose in your life?
Yeah, another really great question. So none of these businesses existed prior to my adoption. So the sequence or series of events was losing my mother and then losing my daughter to adoption. Obviously, 2 different types of losses there.
And both women.
And both women. I always say that there's a natural cycle of life, and that cycle is that you will raise your children will see you pass away, and so on and so forth. So the loss of a child hits significantly deeper than the loss of a parent, because there is a psychological component where we expect that. Now, not maybe as early as I had endured that, but the loss and the grief of grieving someone who's living and that you shouldn't have lost to begin with is so unnatural that it's really difficult to even know how to heal from that. Part of the reason that I went on all of these business endeavors is because I had a choice to let my pain define me and fall into the traps of everything that everybody had said I can only amount to, or I could turn that into purpose and I could turn it into a voice that could make a difference. After, lots of years of grief, this was not an overnight process. I didn't want to bleed onto others. And I had to come to a point where I was healed enough. Now, healing is always a process, but I had to come to a point where I could hear these difficult stories that women bring to me, that business owners bring to me, and not allow that to be a reflection of what I have endured in my own life.
Or even to project it onto somebody else.
Right.
There's that as well, because, we can tap down, something hurts and we're just going to power through. We're strong women. We're just going to do it. Right. And then the seam starts splitting. We're finding ourselves snapping at people. We have unbelievable expectations of others because we've let ourselves down. How did you translate that into building your self-worth back up?
So the first thing that was ignited in me with a fire was this deep passion for reformation in the adoption industry. Most legal reformation is nonprofit work or very underpaid. I have always been somebody that strives to have financial freedom, not for the actual value of the money itself, but for the value of the time that I can have available to me based on my financial freedom. So I knew I wanted to write a book, and that was one of the first things that I started working on. I reached out to a nonprofit organization that the executive director is now a dear friend of mine, and they work with legislators on a state level to change adoption state by state. We're currently working in 13 different states. I have since been added to a member of the board for that nonprofit organization, and I'm also considering running for office. I still have a lot of homework to do on that. It may not be this primary that I'm considering that. It may be in the future, but that is my passion, is change on a legislative level and giving a voice to the people that they feel don't have one. In order to do that, you have to have self-sustainable income, though.
Of course you do. People always, I always laugh at people and say, well, you have all this, you have this or you have that. And there's a natural assumption that you're going to, of course, want to make a contribution to something. But if you don't have, if you don't, just exactly what you just described, that passion, that fire in you, if you don't have that fire in you, then the contribution is just a money contribution.
Absolutely.
But the fire in you fuels that activity, the desire to actually be active, to see a result in something, not to just say, oh yeah, I feel for that. That is such a major a major hurdle for many people, but you seem to have just covered it like you had sprung out of pain and into action. Being a board member, of course, of a nonprofit has another level of commitment, because you not only have committed time, but now you've committed activity and time and money. You don't stop there, Sydney.
No.
Serial entrepreneur, Curtin Call, exterior home and auto restoration. Is that different than the concrete business?
That's the umbrella brokerage. So that company owns the roofing, the solar, the concrete, the cars.
Oh my God. Oh, but wait, there's more. Curtin Call Studios and Entertainment. What is this? And Excite Studios.
Yes. Okay. So those are two different companies, as you pointed out. So Excite Studios is our media development company. So we actually develop mobile applications and websites for business owners that need improvement with their existing website, improvement to their SEO, that would like to build a mobile application. So that is Excite Studios. That is owned by myself and two other partners. And Curtin Call Studios and Entertainment is the LLC that I created that owns the rights to the book that I published, as well as the podcasting and public speaking appearances that I do.
But wait, there's more. Apparel Hub. So, everybody's got to have a uniform. Why not capitalize on the uniforms that they have to go out in? Is that what the apparel business does for you?
Apparel Hub USA is actually an e-commerce website. That is a brilliant idea. Might have to buy it from you. But Apparel Hub USA was created as an e-commerce store. It is a subsidiary of Excite Studios, and
awesome.
We just sell apparel, like the seasonal things, holiday things, gifts, sweatshirts, hoodies, tees, all of that.
Oh my God, you are such an entrepreneur. I was just at the bank just a few minutes ago before I came into the studio, and everybody's in costume, and there was somebody walking around, and the people in line were looking at this woman behind the counter, and she has cereal boxes all over her and bloodstains. And I said, "That's a serial entrepreneur right there."
Oh my goodness, that's so
Serial killer. There's your idea for this afternoon, right?
right, absolutely. Too funny.
Tell me about the Level AI. I know that that's your mobile app business. You're the CEO and developer, but that company is valued at over 7 figures.
It is.
What? When do
I
you
know.
have time for all of this?
So Lev AI is just a crazy story. I quite literally woke up at 1 a.m. I don't sleep well as a person, and I had this idea for a mobile application. But I know I can barely work my phone most days, Linda. Like, very seriously, I'm not your tech person. Don't ask me to fix your phone or your computer or even really how to mess with the TV.
I can relate to that. I'm always
I mean, really. So I had this idea and I did a Google search. How do people even go about building a mobile application? Well, after extensive research, I ran into several shady software developers. This is when I reached out to.
Wait a minute. You ran into several shady software
Absolutely.
developers?
So,
I
and
thought-
you
I was
said
like,
you worked in
let me wait a minute, back up. Let me make sure I understood this. Okay. Because they don't come out with placards on them. You have to find this out, right?
Right.
So tell me more.
Oh, no, absolutely. So, and you said you come from the tech world as well, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so I sat down with 12 different companies. What I was finding was that their LLC was based in a different state than their PO box. Most of the developers are subcontracted from other countries like Pakistan, India, the Philippines, China, even Canada. And so none of those are bad things, just for the record, but the market on the labor rates is very different. So they base the company here in the States, they charge a premium, and they're getting it at a very different rate overseas. Well, the beauty of working with lots of these software development companies is that the liability falls on the company regardless of if they hire a poor developer overseas. However, what I ran into was I had committed to a company that was based in Chicago, according to them, and it did check out that their PO address and their website, that was all congruent.
By the way, most people don't do the kind of homework and legwork that you're talking about, Sydney. You have been burned a few times, and that's when you learn that that's what you have to do. So thank you for that.
Absolutely. Well, and it's so true. When you've been through things, be it in your personal life or in your business life, you learn these backdoor. It's a PTSD response in some ways, but it does protect you specifically in the business capacity to know the things that you need to look for to protect yourself.
Correct.
And real entrepreneurs will squash your throne if it means building theirs. And it's unfortunate, but that is the reality of the situation. It's a dog eat dog world out there, and you have to have bigger teeth.
Or a bigger bone that you're going after.
That's the truth. So I got really burned by a software development company. It escalated to me potentially having to file a federal lawsuit to these individuals. It was really scary. I had gone on this endeavor entirely by myself. Luckily, everything ended up okay. I was able to get the money back that I had paid them in full, minus some legal fees. My attorney is a bulldog. I love him dearly. And after that happened, I wanted to work with somebody that knew more about the software development world than I did. One of my greatest philosophies in business is always surround yourself with people that have more knowledge than you. So I make sure to be very intentional with my business partners. It's a level playing field where I bring equal value, they bring equal value, but we bring different value. One of my dear friends is a owner in a very well-known company that's sold in local grocery stores. He has also developed 2 other mobile applications, one of them related to AI. So I sat down with him, and after sharing my idea with him, he said, I want in this. Originally, my intention was just to sit with him to get advice about how to go about hiring a reputable software development company. However, at the end of that conversation, he said, I will do this with you. And he became a partner.
That is what, they always say that the worst ship to travel on is a relationship, or a partnership. But in this instance, you're making it work, because how can you spread yourself into so many different things and have the ideas, come to fruition if you don't get help? And so asking for that kind of help. Where does this product get sold?
So this product is sold to state level entities. So the public education system, we are working on getting endorsements from the World Health Organization and other entities that will help with the adoption of this application. Because our patent is currently in a provisional stage, I'm not allowed to share a whole lot of details about it at this point, but it will be sold and implemented in the public education system in charter schools.
So what does the app do?
It will, I'm trying to figure out how I'm allowed to word this. It will reward students with monetary value for attending class that will also result in the schools getting monetary grants at a higher value.
I love that. Oh my gosh.
Improve test scores.
You know, at a time where the confidence in schools is at an all-time low, where the kids have learned, you know, from COVID to post-COVID, it's not worth their time. They're not learning anything, and yet, if you don't go to school, the schools can't get paid. They can't possibly, you know, turn in an enrollment sheet with students that are not attending. So I love that. I applaud that, and the fact that you are still parenting, aren't you?
I am. I have 2 babies that I raise.
That's fantastic. But you're parenting in a different way. You're parenting as an example. So from this app, from being a business owner to being an entrepreneur to giving back through the things that you feel so strong and passionate about, I just, you know, I applaud you on this. But what fuels you now? What, you know, building a life isn't just about a successful trajectory, but it's impact and service. Tell me about faith, purpose, and what your legacy is.
It's, oh man, such a good question again. It is my faith, to answer your question. And faith isn't a feeling. It's a decision to show up when everything around you says to quit. And it's why a lot of people end up failing, is because when X amount of things stack up against them, it just becomes too much or too hard. I just posted something the other day. It says you can't spell millions without a couple L's. And it's the truth. You got to take some falls and learn. And I mean, it was really scary almost losing the amount of money that I had almost lost with that software developer. And I take those things, and where most people would stop, I say I learned something and I bounce back from it, and I do it at a speed much faster than the average entrepreneur.
You know, that's a moment of breath and hope for me as well. And you know, people have asked me, Linda, why are you doing the podcast? Why are you? I'm about to publish a book, Wildfire Recovery, and I'm sending out postcards of hope and promise to 4,000 people that lost their homes in this fire. And you know, while I could easily say, you know, I can't rebuild without selling a house, and if you're thinking about it, let me take the listing. And while there's a part of me that would love to do that, another part of me has a sense of responsibility that I need to show people how to get back up. I need to do that. And so for you to say that just resonates so deeply with me. And the sense of purpose is unbelievable. But you have not stopped there. You're an angel investor. Tell me about that.
Yes. So when I was blessed to have these partners come into my life and see the value in what I had, whereas so many people around me at the time saw a young, inexperienced business owner that wanted to develop something, many of which thought that they would be able to take advantage of me and the price tag that they charged for the development and several other things. I decided that I wanted to be able to extend that same level of grace and appreciation for people's ideas to them when it made sense to do so. It started with when I started sharing the concept for my app with a couple dear friends of mine. I had some of them come forward to me and say that they had an idea for an app. And I would hear it, and lots of the time I would not think that it was great due to oversaturation of the market or a variety of other factors. But I appreciated and had space to hear those ideas and encourage them to do more homework. Well, one of my friends had a really brilliant idea, and his hang up was that he didn't have the money to do it. And I said, I'll go in on this with you, because that was the same level of grace that my business partner now has extended to me. And the reaction that he had was fantastic. And then it was just a matter of working out operating agreements that structured it in a way that I was going to have some form of influence, so that the actual potential of the growth and development of this concept could be monetized.
You know, you speak like a person that has been in business for 50, 60 years. Where did you get all this experience? I'm amazed. I'm totally amazed at the depth of knowledge and expertise that you have, but also the clarity and the ability to see through and shift through nonsense BS. You speak like somebody that has been educated at Cornell and Yale, has a business degree, and yet you are just so approachable. How did you get this sense of, my parents were entrepreneurs, but didn't have the entrepreneurial skills that I've developed. And so I get that you had, an entrepreneurial father and that you adored him. I adored my own father. But where did you get this depth of experience, this knowledge? It cannot possibly be, I'm in so much pain, I have to go over here and be successful. There's a little bit of that, but there's also other things that are going in. You have opportunity, you open the door, you don't wait. You carry through and you carry forward. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So my dad, his business was, yes, he was entrepreneurial in several ways, but he built his business off of the skeleton of an existing franchise. And doing that is fantastic. And there's a lot of reward in it. However, you deal with franchise fees and overhead and a bunch of other things, the actual liability of having W-2 employees, the day-to-day management. I didn't want any of that. I knew that there was a different way to run a successful business that would expedite the path forward into what I wanted to achieve. So my whole life, despite my dad being very business minded, his advice to me was always climb up the ladder at a company. I didn't like that option.
No, I'll take my own ladder and my own chances.
Right. I'll build the ladder. If I have to at this point, I'm not working for. And that is one thing that I find consistent in entrepreneurs that I look for is if you have a problem taking orders, then I'd like to talk to you because you have that fire in you. Now, there's a difference between respect and not listening well to other people's ideas or having feedback that you want to be heard out that you just won't in a corporate world. So there's a fine line there, but I have never done well in the corporate world because I see opportunity for more and they don't want to hear it on the level that you often are in those corporations. Okay. That's when I decided that I was going to find another way. And it meant my network. My network is what brought me to where I am today. I attended caucus meetings when I knew nothing about politics at the time. I attended town hearings. I attended the local events and looked for the people wearing the name tags that were hosting the events. I went to the Chamber of Commerce and shook hands. And I did that for years and years and years. I met the most successful real estate agents in the business, almost got my real estate license just to meet more people, found I didn't have to at that point.
No, you don't. You really don't. Oh my goodness. So how do people find you, Sydney?
You can reach out to me on Facebook. My Facebook is Sydney N as in Nicole Curtin. My website is www.coachcurtin, but CURTIN.com. And my email is info@coachcurtin.com.
We're just about out of time, but we've got time for one more question. If you could go back and speak to your 13-year-old self, what would you tell her?
You don't have to be so hurried.
Oh,
Life is short enough. You don't have to rush it.
No. Like, as a 13-year-old, we feel like, we have to hurry and do something or that we're bulletproof. And so, we run both gamuts, but I just love your encouragement and your advice to your 13-year-old self. Sydney, I can't believe we're out of time, but I want to thank you so much for being one of the most awesome guests that I've had in this program. Your resilience and your ability to strike back and get back up is the best form of a Phoenix story that I've heard in a long time. Thank you so much.
It was so great to be here. Thank you.
My pleasure. And that's a wrap today. I just hope that you enjoyed this as much as I did speaking with Sydney. Stay tuned for another episode next week. But if you have somebody that's got a story, it's got to get out. See you soon.
Season 3 of Money Talk isn't just about money. It's about recovery, resilience, and expansion, so you can build back better. Your house doesn't have to burn to the ground, but if your business or your life has, and you're ready to share your story, I want to talk to you. Contact me at LindaKay360 or call me at 424-395-2885. Remember, your setback is a setup for a comeback, and I promise you, you'll inspire others to get back up one more time with your story.